Hey there, it's Olivia Savannah here from Olivia's Catastrophe, and today we are here to do an unhaul. I'm not sure when you're seeing this, but I'm doing this in December, so it's an end of the year unhaul, just cleaning out my shelves so that I can face the new year with shelves of books that I really like and books that I really want to read. So I'm doing this book unhaul in two parts because right now, as of filming right now, I'm in the UK, so I'm with my TBR and recently read books, and for part two of this, which will still be in the same video, just stick around, I will be in the Netherlands, which is kind of my second home to me, where all of my read books are, and I'll be unhauling from my read book shelves. So first of all, we're unhauling recent reads and unread books. So the first book I'm unhauling is The Invisible Life of Addie Larue. We're just gonna dive right in. I read this book and I did not like it, but I do think that the main two characters had a lot of privilege that they just were not tapping into. They could have used it better. I think the demon in this one was rubbish at being a demon. He was too busy trying to be a sexy man than actually a scary demon. So this one just really was not the book for me. I got very bored very quickly and found it very repetitive. This is a stunning Illumicrate edition, but my best friend does want to read this book, so it will not go to waste, and I do think she's going to enjoy it a lot more than I did. The other book that I'm unhauling I don't have here with me because I've been loaning it out. My flatmate is currently reading it and has it, and that is She Who Became the Sun by Shelley Parker Chan. This is the proof copy that I read and I thought it was okay. I didn't dislike it, but I didn't love it like everybody else on BookTube seems to be loving it. I will not be continuing the series. I do believe it's a series, and as I won't be continuing, I don't feel a need to hold on to the first book. My flatmate is currently loving it, and then I'm going to pass it on to another booktuber who wants to read it, so it won't be going to waste either. I'm also unhauling Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell by Susanna Clarke, a big 1,000-page book that I read and really didn't like. I thought it was so boring and so dry, so long and so unnecessary that it doesn't need to necessarily stay on my shelves. It can go and do good elsewhere. I just think it wasn't a good fantasy book. I don't understand the hype. I'm happy to let this one go. Next book that I'm unhauling is Wildcard by Mary Lou. This is the second book in the Warcross series. I've given up on getting books in series that I intend to read that aren't the first book. So I don't have the first book, but I have the second book, and I'm just unhauling it because I want to have the first book first, and then if I enjoy the first book, I can just get the second book again. I got this from someone's unhaul, so it's not like I paid for it even. So that's why that one's going. Next book I'm unhauling is The Shadowhunter's Codex by Cassandra, Clare and Joshua Lewis. I'm still toying with the idea of just unhauling the unread Shadowhunter books that I own. I've got 4 that I haven't read. And I feel like after finishing the original, well, not the original quite, but the 6 The Mortal Instruments books when I was younger, I think the ship has sailed. I think I'm past my Shadowhunter phase, but I still want to give one of the 4 a try before I fully let it go and say it's game over. But either which way, I'm still unhauling the Shadowhunter's Codex now because I feel like this encyclopedic kind of book is for people who are real fans, who really want to know this extra information. Even if I end up enjoying the other books when I try them, that's not going to be me anymore, so it's better off somewhere else. I'm unhauling The Time Traveler's Wife by Audrey Niffenegger. I have been reading the oldest books on my TBR, and then I hit this one as the next oldest book on my TBR, and I realised I really don't want to read it. So instead of forcing myself to read a book that I actually have no more interest in, I'm just going to unhaul it. I don't think it's going to be the one for me. I love books about time travel. I love films about time travel. This really sounds boring to me. Reviews from people who I tend to align with don't like it either, so I'm just going to let it go. Again, I think my best friend's going to like it more than I am. Then I'm unhauling The Midnight Guardians by Ross Montgomery. I got this one in a book box and thinking about this one for quite a while, but I think what I can put it down to pat as is I've really understood now what kind of middle grade I'm looking for, and the kind of middle grade that I'm looking for is diverse middle grade, or middle grade that digs into social situations or themes of identity and grief. Specifically just those. Or Christmas middle grade, and Christmas books that are middle grade. Those are all I'm looking for in middle grade. While I've started to read middle grade a bit more, I think it needs to have some of the things that I really love, like found family or very, very good character development for me to really want to read it. And historical middle grade books, they're just not making the cut. And this is historical fiction with fantasy elements in it, but I don't think historical middle grade is where it's at for me. So letting it go. War and Peace by Leo Tolstoy. I read this, I enjoyed it for the most part. I'm going to get myself one of those beautiful, wonderful Penguin Library editions and not this Wordsworth edition that I totally bent up, that I totally ripped up and ruined. I usually get my classics a bit beat up, secondhand, very cheap, so that I can read it and see if I like it, and then if I do enjoy it, I get one of the beautiful fancy editions to add to my shelf, rather than getting a beautiful fancy edition and then realizing it's racist or very misogynistic, or I really didn't enjoy that. I'm also unhauling White is for Witching by Helen Oyeyemi. I read this in my Gothtober vlogs for Gothtober and I did not enjoy it. It just was not my cup of tea, and therefore I don't need to hold on to it. The next book I'm unhauling is The Chaos by Nalo Hopkinson, and this is one that I bought for my Afrofuturism dissertation, but then realised I had bought too many books for my Afrofuturism dissertation because I was so excited to be writing about Afrofuturism that there was no way I could cram all of them in and still make it a good dissertation. So this one fell by the wayside and I didn't read it. It's a young adult Afrofuturist book, but unfortunately I just don't think I'm going to pick it up. I keep looking at it, and even though I love Afrofuturism with my whole heart, I just have no interest in this one. I can't raise any interest out of my poor soul. So instead I'm going to be giving it to my best friend who is interested in it again. And it's not like I'm never going to read Nalo Hopkinson. She is on my list of authors I definitely need to read. I just think I will get along with her adult Afrofuturism a lot more than this young adult Afrofuturism. Monster by Michael Grant. This is the first book in the sequel series to Gone. Gone is one of my favourite series of all time. Still not sure if it holds up, but the sequel series didn't hold up. This was so bad for multiple reasons, and I do still need to film my video where I'm going to discuss what I like to see and what I don't like to see in sequel series and what they need to do better. But if I had to give an example of a sequel series that does everything wrong, it's this one. Don't read this, it was so bad. Kololo Hill by Neema Shah. This is a proof copy. I read this one and I learned a lot. It's about the decree that was issued that expelled all Ugandan Asians from Uganda and kind of their experience leaving the country, trying to find somewhere to go all of a sudden. And it was a decree that I'd never heard about or never learned about before, so I definitely learned a lot while reading this book. But in terms of the storyline itself, it kind of ended in an unsatisfactory way and it didn't work wonders for me. I wouldn't say it was a bad book by any means, but it's just not one I feel a need to keep on my shelf. And when I was reading this, I was telling my mum about it and she seemed very interested in it, so I think my mum is really going to enjoy reading this book. Then I'm also unhauling How to Think Like Shakespeare by Newstok, which I debated for a very long time because if I read something with Shakespeare in it, I kind of want to keep it. But I don't think I need to hold on to this Shakespeare book. I think it could do good elsewhere. I did like the essay collection. I thought it had some very good ideas about education, and I really liked how it kind of tied Shakespeare into this philosophizing and thinking about different concepts. I just think in terms of being an argument in their essays, it needed to have a bit more counter-argument and arguing against those counter-arguments, and that's where I think it fell a bit short. So I just think it's not what I'm going to reread, and therefore I shouldn't hold on to it. I'm not saying that I only keep books that I think I'm going to reread, but that I can just imagine myself rereading at some point. I'm also unhauling Prism by David Kay, which is a memoir about his experience with his disability and going to university with it and some other things that happened in his life. I really enjoyed this memoir and I do recommend it. The only reason why it's leaving my shelves is because I actually think Simone is going to get a lot out of reading this memoir and she is really going to enjoy it. So it's not even one that I want to let go of. I just think giving it to her is the best thing that I can do. So I'm just gonna do it, even though I want to keep it. Maybe I'll get a second copy for myself at some point. And I'm also letting go of this poetry chapbook, which is How the First Sparks Became Visible by Simone, Atangana, Bekono, and this one is translated from Dutch to English. It was a very quick read. It's very short as it's a chapbook and not a whole collection. I did think it was good. I just didn't love it, so I don't need to keep it on my shelves. With poetry, it can be very hit or miss. I feel like poetry is a very personally attuned kind of reading. I know you have opinions when it comes to books, but I think with poetry it's even more opinion based to some degree, and this just wasn't for me. So I'll be letting go of this one as well. Those are all of the books that I'm unhauling here. Future Olivia Savannah is going to Schawb now and talk about more books that I'm unhauling. So the next few books I'm unhauling are The Mercies by Kieran Millward Hargrave. I read this one and I just thought it was okay, and I don't especially think I'm ever going to reread it, and I know that there's a lot of people who love this book, which means there are more people who will get this book and enjoy it more than I did. It's beautiful and stunning, and I read it for review and reviewed it, but I don't need to hold on to this one. I'm also unhauling The Court of Miracles by Kester Grant, which is this beautiful Allura Crate edition, but again, it just was not the book for me. I thought it was going to be more than it was. I had high expectations just because it sounded like such an interesting blend of different things and retellings, but it didn't pay off, and it was just an okay read, but I don't need to keep it on my shelf regardless of how stunning it is. To Kill a Kingdom by Alexandra Christo. I read this one when it was very popular on BookTube and I did enjoy it, but I just didn't love it the way that everybody else did. It was just a fun time. I'm always looking for Little Mermaid retellings because I do think we need more retellings like that, but unfortunately this wasn't the one in the bag for me. It's signed, it's a beautiful edition, but again, it's going. And I'm also going to unhaul The Stormcrow by Callian Josephson. I read this one and I enjoyed it. I didn't think I was going to continue with the series, and lo and behold, a few years later, I have not continued with the series, so I'm just no longer going to be holding on to the first one. I did think it was nice. It was very refreshing to see a main character who was really struggling with depression but still managing to get so much of the plot underway. I really liked that, and I think somebody else is going to love this one and want to continue the series as well. Magic Toy Shop by Angela Carter. I read this one and I had a good time with it. I was enjoying it right up until somewhere near the end when something strange happened. That's not one of my favourite things to include in the plot, and it just felt very weird, and I just didn't want it to end in that particular way, but it so happened that it did. The writing was beautiful. Angela Carter has a beautiful writing style, but the story was just a bit too weird for me. I've got 3 classics that I'm unhauling in succession, and that is The Little Prince, A Christmas Carol, and also The Secret Garden, and that is because I recently bought really stunning editions of all 3 of these classics, and as I now have beautiful editions of them, I don't need to keep these editions that I currently own. Up next we have The Lovely Bones by Alice Sebold. I read this one when I was a teenager and it had a profound impact on me because it was one of the first stories dealing with this subject matter that I read as a young adult. However, I have since read other books that have tackled this subject matter that I don't want to say I enjoyed more because that's the wrong temperament, but I appreciated more and I think did it more tastefully than this one did. And also with the recent court case around Alice Sebold's memoir and how somebody was falsely imprisoned, that involves her, it just makes me very uncomfortable, and I don't think I really need her books on my shelf. This is the only one I have, but I don't need any more. Say Her Name by Zetta Elliott. This is a collection of kind of woke poetry, and it was nice. I read it, it was okay. I don't need to keep it, especially as I do not have shelves and space, so unhauling. Big Bones by Laura Dockrell. I read this one quite a while ago now, and I liked some elements of it. I think for what I know of it, the plus size representation is done well. However, I did not think the disability or temporary disability, I can't quite remember, representation was done well, so I did not like that aspect. I liked other aspects which made this a middle of the road read for me, but I'm going to let it go to somebody else who could take advantage of this one more. We have Distortion by Victor Dixon. So I read Ascension, which is the first one in this very weird but kind of wonderful sci-fi speed dating story, and I was so intrigued and I really enjoyed Ascension. It was just off to a great start. I was fully invested, and then I read this sequel, and while I liked it, I did not like it enough to continue on with the series, so I already decided after finishing this book that I was going to stop reading at book 2, and I haven't gone any further. And because this one was just okay for me, I think I'm going to unhaul this one, but I'm keeping the first book in the series. I'm keeping Ascension because I did really love that one, and I think it's so creative and so unique and just does something different with this storyline that I've never even thought of possible in a book. So I'm keeping the first one, but I'm unhauling the second one. And my younger sister Simone has read the first one, hasn't read the second one, so I think she's going to enjoy getting this book and getting to continue the series herself. The Creature Keeper by Damaris Young, which I read earlier this year in my 30 books in 30 days challenge. And when I read this one, I did already explain how it was a middle of the road read for me, and I was probably going to unhaul it because I'm not a big animals books person. Animals in books just don't do it for me. I'm not that emotionally attached to animals in real life either, unfortunately, so reading about it just doesn't work for me. And I think there's going to be some child or some middle grade reader who's going to read this book and it's going to be full of creative animals and they will love it. We've got a book that I had to read for university, that's My Antonia by Willa Cather. I thought this was a bit boring but mostly fine. It wasn't bad, it just wasn't amazing. And it kind of reminds me of Little House on the Prairie in some form and way, so maybe my mum will like this one. We have Eve and Adam by Michael Grant and Catherine Applegate. I read this one when I was younger and I absolutely loved it. I thought it was creative, Adam and Eve retelling, and since then I've got better judgment and taste in books and it's not that great, okay? So if you see my Goodreads review of this one and you're like, wow, Olivia Savannah liked this, don't read it based on that recommendation. That was younger me. She didn't have taste yet, but now I have taste and I know that this is not the best one, and I'm just quite done with Michael Grant books, except for the Gone series. The Gone series now and forever, but anything else, I let it go. I'm unhauling Bittersweet by Kathy Cassidy. This is one of the short stories from the Chocolate Box Girls series, and they came out as individual short stories on World Book Day, and this is one that I got. But since then, she's made a short story collection where all of the short stories are in there, and I've recently acquired that short story collection, so I don't need the individual copy anymore, and I'm unhauling it. I'm also unhauling Bull by David Elliott. This is a novel in verse that's about the Minotaur story, the Greek mythology one, and even when I read this when I was younger, I think it was one of the first few proofs that I ever received. It was like a big deal when I got this to my teenage self in 2017. Even when I read it back then, I thought it was okay and a middle of the road read. I haven't reread it since all these years later, and I don't think I need to keep it on my shelf, so I'm unhauling this novel in verse. Another one I had to read for university, The Science of Storytelling by Will Storr. I was thinking I would keep it for it to be some creative writing inspiration. There were a few things I tabbed, so I thought maybe I'll come back to it, but it's been a few months. I've never come back to it, and I actually remember what those tabs say, kind of integrated them into my writing already, so I don't need a physical book to remind me when I don't have that much space. Letters to Kathy by Kathy Cassidy. This was not what I expected when I got it when I was younger. So I got this as a teenager and I thought it was another fictional Kathy Cassidy book, but it's not. It's actually fans have written letters to Kathy Cassidy with things about their life that are struggles that they're going through, these teenagers, and she's responded to the letters in a book. Which I read it all and it was fine. It just wasn't what I wanted it to be. So don't need to keep it now. Hellworld by Tom Levine. This is a book that I read for review back in my early days of blogging. It's a zombie novel. It was a fairly good zombie novel. I don't need to keep it. We have Titanic by Bridget Minamore. This is a chapbook of poetry. I was a bit underwhelmed. I did like this poetry chapbook, but I was expecting a bit more. I got this because I went to an event where Bridget Minamore was the chair, so it was not about her, but she as a chair intrigued me so much I wanted to go and find some of her poetry. So I did, and it was fine, but still not my favourite thing ever. Shatterpoint by Jeff Alterbeth. This was a hard decision for me to unhaul this one. This is one of the first few review copies I ever received, and I remember reading this one and my mind shattered because it was such a good thriller. I don't know if it holds up. I cannot say if it is still a good thriller. I read this back when I had read no thrillers, so it's arguably one of the first thrillers I had ever read. But I just remember it being so good and so much fun. I have fond memories of it, but I have never ever returned to read it again. And I now know that I'm a bit picky when it comes to my thrillers. They have to be very, very good, and from what I remember, I don't think this is going to tick my boxes anymore, so I'm just gonna unhaul it and keep my good fond memories of it without ruining it with a reread. We have Illegal by John Denny. This is a non-fiction memoir about his experience being an illegal immigrant in Cuba, and he is like a white cis male person, but by becoming illegal he finally starts to understand some things about the refugee crisis. Sorry, I meant Ecuador. So he finally talks about his experience with being illegal, an illegal immigrant in Ecuador, and why he wanted to stay and what he was doing while he was there. It was good. I've never reread it. I don't think I will. And then last but not least, I am unhauling The Influential Author by Gregory V. Deal. This is a guide to writing non-fiction works and writing it better. I got this for review and it was very insightful, and I did appreciate reading it. I was writing non-fiction assignments for university, which is not my strong point. It's not my strong suit. I'm not really the kind of person who likes to be in the spotlight. A bit funny because I have a YouTube channel and a bookstagram, so you kind of would expect me to enjoy being in the spotlight. That's not me, not really. So writing non-fiction all about myself was a painful task to do in university. I do believe this book helped me through it. I don't think I need to hold on to it. I don't think I'm going to be writing any non-fiction by choice in the future. If I do, I've really done some serious character development for myself in terms of confidence. And there you have it. Those are all of the books that I'm unhauling. I think it's quite a significant end of the year unhaul if you combine what I unhauled in the UK and what I've unhauled here in the Netherlands. We'll see what are the next books I end up unhauling next year, but hopefully I'll be enjoying a lot of the things that I read. We always hope. Please let me know in the comment section down below what was the last book you unhauled, or what is a book that you think you might unhaul that you haven't read yet. I'm curious to know. Please give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, hit the subscribe button if you want to see more, and don't forget to hit that notification bell to be updated every time I have a new video, and you know what they say, onwards and upwards. Excelsior!